What's up, y'all? You're watching Urbante by Dante, and today we're going to be building the city of Chattamaugua. We'll pick up where we left off from the last episode, and we will resume our development of the satellite city of Highland. Recently, the city council gathered, and the small population of Highland spoke up. They brought forth concerns highlighting the community's lack of educational institutions and adequate green space. Today, we're planning on addressing those concerns of the residents. We are planning on utilizing this parcel of land for the city's educational buildings. In addition, the community members were adamant about the establishment of a magnificent park. They strongly opposed any proposal to designate a portion of the downtown area for low to mid-density development, as they emphasize a pressing need for ample green space within city limits. Listening to the community, the city came up with an awesome plan through the Planning and Economic Development divisions. They came up with a plan to create a beautiful municipal park that residents have been eagerly waiting for. And here's the best part. The park will be financed by developing higher density residential units on the eastern side of the city, which will not only help us cover the costs of constructing the park, but also provide more housing opportunities for the community. We're going to be building this park in this parcel right here. We're planning on putting a few facilities in order to maximize the use of our land, and our residential units will go here. We're going to start with constructing our elementary school. This parcel of land was designated for the elementary school. So we're going to start building the entrance. I'm going to go and use this 2-lane road with median trees. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to find a nice spot in this road to send this back. For the cost of $240, we're going to send that back, and we're going to make a straight connection. Didn't really like that, so I deleted that. Let's go back even further. This way, we have some setback. I don't want a slope in the entrance of our school, so we're going to take that node and make it even with that one. While doing so, we need to delete those trees. I didn't realize that I had tree anarchy on. Let's go into our landscaping and flatten the terrain. In reality, this is something that you would see. You would see the terrain being flattened first before the construction even starts. So, doing so, we flatten the parcel to give our building just enough room to fit here without destroying the topography too much. We're going to use this American elementary school that I picked up off the workshop, and we're going to place this down at the end of this road, and that's going to make a nice entrance. Yeah, it's coming together well. I'm happy with that. Now that our elementary school has been built, we have an opportunity to move forward with the next phase of construction, which is constructing a much needed parking facility for dedicated faculty and hardworking parents of this community. Now, we're going to put all of our hard-earned tax dollars to work, and we're going to lay out a nice, expensive parking lot. But first, let's take a moment to admire these views. We've worked hard on constructing this school, and I just want to take it all in. Just look at that. That looks great from the street. By the way, this elementary school only has the name of elementary school. Right now it's pretty generic, and we need your ideas. We need your suggestions to give this place a name and make it feel special. So if you were to give this school a name, what would you call it? Anyway, let's go into our 16-meter parking lot roads, and let's send this out just a little bit without clipping into our cemetery. Because one thing we don't want to do is disturb the dead and pave over them with a parking lot. Now that segment is established, we're going to send that down for the cost of $200. Perfect. Rather than using these parking lot roads that come off the workshop, let's actually use the parking lots that came in with the most recent Hubs and Transports DLC. Oops, I didn't mean to place that pause. I admit it looks nice there. It's just not in the budget. So let's go with our large decorative parking lot, because why not? It's America. And on second thought, we're not going to do that. We're going to go with smaller parcels of parking lot, and we're going to place these here. There we go. Not quite as large as a large parking lot, and I think that's just enough for an elementary school without overbuilding it too much. And we also have parking here in front of the school for essential faculty like the principal, superintendent when the superintendent visits, and other heads of departments. And we have parking there for parents. This looks okay. I'm happy with the placement of that, and I think that we're in a good place to move on. I can't get over this view. It's just so gorgeous. Instead of having a cul-de-sac right here, we're going to connect this to our collector road. We're going to be using our 2-lane road with trees in the median, and we're going to turn on our snap 2s with the freeform segment on, and we're going to connect this here to this node. And second thought, let's try to get as close to a decent angle as possible. That's all right. The city's planning division has recently discovered the perfect location for our upcoming construction project, which is our high school. We're going to be building it on this scenic hilltop right here. It's going to fulfill the city's requirement without indulging in an unsustainable overbuilding practices. Since we have limited space available, we need to be conservative with how we place our sporting facilities. And I think that we have one of two choices. We can build on the side of this creek, or we can build over there. I'm going to flatten my terrain first before I even think about building our school. We are going to go into our terrain tools, and we're going to take out the level tool, flatten this terrain to road height, and we're going to make as large of a platform as we can so there's no lumpies and bumpies in our parcel. Just trying to stick as close to the reality of realism as we can. Now that this terrain has been pushed back and it's been leveled, we're going to go into our educational buildings, and we're going to use this JP High School that I got off the warehouse. We're not going to put it on the collector. We're not savages. We've learned from our mistakes, and we're going to send this further back. That way there's some setback from the collector itself. Just like the elementary school, we're going to build a landing for the school. That way the buses have somewhere to line up. Now, if I could remember where my schools are, and it doesn't look like I do remember. There we go. Now that we have our school, we are going to place this right here. I'm going to move this over so the stairs line up with the center of this street with the median as close as possible. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with the way that looks. It does have some curb appeal. I don't know what's up with those German flags. We got to replace those. Come episode 4, we'll have some flag replacer from Bloody Penguin, so we can do that. I think right here is a really good place to place some smaller parking lots. So let's use our vanilla parking lot assets and place those down. That looks pretty natural. I can see that happening in real life. Let's go ahead and take a road and let's send this on the side of this high school. And I want to try to put a large parking lot in the back of this high school. And it doesn't look like I'll be able to fit it there, and I really don't want to build it on the side of the high school. So let me see if I can just put these smaller parking lots down. I decided to go with none instead of having some parking back there. I then realized that I can make the large parking lot work like I first wanted to. However, that dip right there is very concerning. So I'm going to move this over. With the Move It mod, I'm going to send this as close to that creek as I can without having the parking lot fall off the edge. I tried leveling this out so it's more level, but it's too close to that national road. Let's send a road just off to the side of this parking lot to give it some surface. I think that is okay. And let's start with our sporting facilities. I thought I was going to go with the track and field, but then I realized our population is a little small right now, so I don't think that's going to be necessarily sustainable for a population of this size. I also wanted to go with the community football park. A man can dream. Unfortunately, our population is just a little too small for that, and I don't see that being realistic with a town, or I'm sorry, a city of this size. I apologize, citizens of Highland. Now I'm going to place this suburban soccer field here in this road. I had a little difficulty with this at first, and then I tried thinking about other ways that we could put this, or other areas that we could put this football field, and none of those other areas that we looked at sat right. It would be way too expensive to level this out and make it work the way we want to. In addition to that, we might have actually destroyed our water feature, our pond just on the side of the elementary school, and we really don't want to do that. This asset is really big, and unfortunately we don't have any space down here on the lower part of this terrain to place this soccer field. I'm sorry, this football field. This would be perfect down there, but instead we have to look for a place up here to place it. But before I do that, allow me to fix my connections. I'm going to go into my road segments, and I'm going to send this parallel to our national road. There we go. Now that we have a connection, this creates some more opportunity to place it down, further reinforcing my idea that the football field really won't work on that lower part of that terrain. I'm going to take that node and I'm going to make it even with the intersection there. I'm going to take my level tool and flatten this out. I'm just going to send this terrain just a little further out, not too expensive, not breaking the bank, and I'm going to place my football field down. Look at that. Unfortunately, our terrain is protruding into our creek. That looks like it's being fed by a spring. In reality, I don't think that we would do that, and if we do, I'd be questioning the planner's design choices, because water features are important in the communities. Now, can we take a moment to talk about this awkward parcel? Unfortunately, because of the way downtown was constructed, this is really challenging to build any sort of significant development in this parcel right here. But this is where targeted urbanism comes in handy. Targeted urbanism allows us to take a specialized approach into city planning. It allows us to address unique characteristics and challenges of each parcel of land. So we can now leverage this awkward parcel and turn it into a valuable asset for our community. Let's go into our park menu and let's place our main gate down. This created the Park of Mulberry Meadows. Doing so gives us a number of assets that we can use, like the park side gate, the park plaza, the park info booth, the restrooms, and the cafe. We're going to make good use out of all of those. I'm going to take the move tool and move this main gate into the middle of the intersection so it's centered. Once I do that, I can take a step back and figure out where my side gates are going to go. I want to put the side gates here on this collector road and over here along downtown. I don't want to put anything further back because that's where my higher uses are going to go. Let's go into our zoning tool and let's zone this park district. With the smallest brush size, we're going to go inside of the district and we're going to paint along this road, and we're going to send it back and along that collector. That way we have a little sliver of space that's not our park area. We can put some other uses in there eventually. This parcel of land back here would be great for apartments or a higher density use of some sort. For now, we're going to place down our park entrances, so sit back and enjoy. That is smooth. Let's go into our networks section, our landscaping and disaster section, and let's take the park path with decorations. We're going to make a connection. Unfortunately, we can't go in straight because the gates aren't lined up and there's not enough distance to make a straight connection. So we're going to go in at an angle and compromise. It's on a hill, so that's going to make it challenging to place our plaza down. I need some reference, so I'm just making a segment of road, of path that I can gauge to figure out what's straight and what's not. But before I place that plaza down, I need to go into my level tool and I need to level out this terrain as best as possible. Okay, now that my terrain is leveled to a degree, I can place this down in hopes that this actually looks good. I'm going to use Move It, and I'm going to make this as reasonable as possible because I really don't want a cliff that people can fall off of. That's not really safe. Okay, that is all right, but we could do better. So I'm going to delete this and we're going to go back to the drawing board. We'll revisit that. I'm going to make another segment here. That way we can have multiple connections into our park. I think right here is a great place to put a playground. Because of the terrain, the playground is a much better use. It conforms to hilly terrain a lot better than the plaza. So now that our playground is down with the beautiful Chinese windmill palms, we can place our restroom down and maybe even go with a cafe. Yeah, we're gonna go with the cafe, and I'm gonna put that along this entrance. Perfect. That way the locals nearby can grab a bite to eat and they won't have to go too deep into the park. I know some of you were yelling at your screen thinking you didn't send utilities to the high school campus. My mistake. I was going to, but then I forgot. I got a little carried away. So let's go into our electricity section, grab a rural utility line, and send this right up that hill so we don't get sued for not providing utility services to our high school campus. Alright, give it a second for that electricity to flow and our complaint should go away. In the meantime, look at these happy citizens. Let's take our path and send this along this road. Whoops. I unfortunately have my freeform segment on, and when you do that and you pinch the node, it does exactly what you've seen. It does some pretty wonky things. Let's do the same on the other side. We're working with limited space because of the topography. It is a little hilly and we have limited space. So let's make some really good connections. Let's go back into our park area. Let's try to slope this terrain as best as we can so we can fit that plaza in that we initially wanted to put. We're going to place this down. That is not what I was going for. So I'm going to use Move It, Control H, and I'm going to set it to the same height as this segment here. There we go. That looks a lot more reasonable. I'm actually really happy with that. Considering that we just built that into a hillside, that's awesome. I think I have just the right detailing idea to complement this. But before I do that, let's make some connections. You know, I thought I was doing something until I realized we were building on a hill. So I had to pull out my topography map and I had to respect the topography. Now that that's done, we're going to try to make a connection right here. But first, I need to find out how far I have to go before I hit the park limits, because we are confined to a certain parcel of land. Now, I'm going to put another side gate right here. I know I wasn't initially planning on it, but upon evaluation of our plan, I feel like it's more efficient to have one right there. Originally, I was going to try to offset these two paths and make a smooth connection like we do with the roads, but I realized we're not dealing with cars, we're dealing with people. So it's okay to have some sharper angles. That's not too steep of a path. I like the way that this is coming to shape up. I think I could build an amphitheater right there. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a platform by going into our pedestrian roads. I'm going to grab our cobblestone road with trees and I'm going to make a segment. I'm just going to figure out how I'm going to place it, and that's using the straight segment tool. Now I need my nodes to line up with this and that, and I need my segment to be even all across. So now that it's level, I'm going to go into my parks and get my amphitheater.
This asset is awesome. I love the way that this looks. I'm going to move it, and I'm going to highlight all of this just so we can move it out a little more. Voila, I like the way that this is sitting, nice and pretty. So let's figure out what else we can do here. I want to try to make a connection so our pedestrians have a way to get up there to the amphitheater because it's a little high right now. Maybe if I elevate this and I send this down to this road, it would work out. By default, I would be deleting a path, not too favorable. And I'm not very happy with how steep that is. I don't find that reasonable under any circumstances. If it was stairs, yes, but this is a ramp and we're not going to have people rolling down this ramp. So let's take our set slope mode from our unified UI and go with the last node to see if that fixes anything. In fact, that just made it even worse. That's not what I was going for. So Control Z, and we're going to try this again. Using my decorated paths, I'm going to make an initial segment. I'm going to delete that, and we are going to make an elevated ramp for our pedestrians to get up and down. Right, with snap twos and nodes snapping off, we're going to curve this, send this down to -2 meters and connect right there. I love that. This will be great if we can elevate this, so I'll hit this with the slope tool mode from network multi-tool, and hopefully this will work out. I placed a key wall here in between cuts, that way you didn't have to suffer through it with me, and it looks instantly better. So before I raise that segment up, let's see if we can send this key wall down to the end of this road. And right off the bat, I'm instantly regretting this. It doesn't look like it's working the way I want it to. So we're going to try it out, maybe adjust some nodes, but it didn't work out. Instead, let's use our natural landscaping when in doubt. So we're going to use some of these large boulders, and then we're going to place this down around this pedestrian bridge to give it a nice natural feel. So the people on this pedestrian road and the amphitheater, as well as the people from the road, don't see each other. And they are blocking each other. This way, the people in the amphitheater aren't distracted by the car traffic, and the car traffic can't disturb the people in the amphitheater. I love it. Let's do the same thing that we did on the other side here. Let's make a pedestrian connection, and let's try to connect this up as best as we can. I wanted to try to connect to this path, but unfortunately it didn't work. So we're going to try to connect to the street instead. And we're going to use a height of 3 meters and try to drop it down just a little bit and connect it to the sidewalk. That way, people can walk underneath the bridge and they can continue into the park. Or they can come up this way and get to the amphitheater. This is perfect. I realized that I could have done a little bit more on that pedestrian road. I realized that I could have added some additional seating there, but that's something that we can address later. Look at this view. That is just the cutest. So when you come down this way, you get perfect views of downtown. Now that I'm thinking about it, we can actually put a key right here on this wall. This is going to give us a nice controlled and manicured look. We just have to adjust the heights because right now it's a little raw and we want these nodes to match up so it looks nice and smooth. Using movement, where we're going to move it a little closer, and we're going to try to send an additional segment back to touch the edge of the pedestrian path. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have some lumpies and bumpies no matter how it is. It's just too close. It wasn't designed for that. So we're just smoothing it and massaging it so it's as conformed and malleable as possible. And this looks as good as it's going to get. So let's use some landscaping to hide these imperfections, because we don't think people would be going in that divot anyways. So let's use our tall grass by Mr. Mason and place those in that corner. And we're also going to do the same thing on this side for symmetry. I like it. Let's delete this tree right here, ruining our sight lines. And would you look at that? That is just the cutest. You come into the park and you have a nice retaining wall where people can look out at downtown. Let's go ahead and place some of our other facilities down. I'm going to go with a park cafe, and I'm going to try to put it somewhere in this area. And right there is going to be its home. I think that's pretty fitting considering the amount of space that we have. I'm going to go with a public info booth, and I'm going to put this right here as close as I can to the entrance, especially for visitors. And I ended up moving it here across from the cafe because I didn't like the way that it cut into the terrain. I want something a little bit more natural that looks and feels more natural. So I'm using Move It to adjust these two assets so they are situated in a way that just makes sense. I want it to flow, and I really like this. I like that this hill is so open. It reminds me of a place where people can go and have a picnic or go throw a frisbee with their dog, maybe throw a football or kick a soccer ball with their kids. It looks like a great place. I'm going to try to put a gazebo or some sort of use down here on the bottom. We might even go with some food trucks, but for now, let's go ahead and let's place our gazebos so we can maintain our scenic views in the park. This used to be a road. Actually, that still is a road. I had to delete that segment of water pipe so we can keep the water pipes under the road. I mentioned that hillside could be used for so many things. Unfortunately, this is Cities Skylines, and we do have to use some of the space because we have a limited amount of assets. So I'm going to go with some gazebos. I thought that I would be able to place a chessboard down here, but the hill is a little bit too steep for this asset, so we're going to rethink this decision. Instead, we're going to place it here by the bank. And we're going to make another connection there. That will give people multiple ways to get around the middle of this park. And I really want to make our waterfront section right here. And I'm going to stop this segment right there at the landing. And this is a gentle slope. I love this. We have this area here that looks like it can hold water in times of heavy rain or increased water levels of this lake. So we're going to not develop that, and we're going to make this look a little bit more natural. So we're going to go into our rocks, and we're going to use the small rocks. We are going to set our brush size to single, and we're going to place these down. We're going to end up copying this so we can repeat the pattern. Mission accomplished. Now that our rock bed is down, we can go into our vegetation and we can find a vegetation that works for us. I mentioned before that in the south and a lot of the low-lying areas, you have ivies that overtake everything from fences to trees to smaller plants. I'm going to place this ivy down here on the banks of this river, signifying that this area is overgrown, it's unkept, and it's wild. That way, our citizens won't feel too disconnected from the wilderness that surrounds them. After all, we are in the Mountain Empire region, and I'm going to continue this vegetation here on the bank. So now when it floods, it's going to act as a natural environment as well as a recreational spot. I love when designers of landscapes do that. They can have a dynamic landscape that's not forcing Mother Nature out, and Mother Nature can still do her job when the weather gets rough. That's partly the reason why you see so much flooding in cities like New Orleans. Look at this view. That is just gorgeous. Imagine going on a jog on this path and having that view by you. Now, you may be used to this, but this is pretty cute. I would love to have this in my backyard. Unfortunately, where I live, you have to pay a pretty penny to have a natural resource like this in your backyard or even near you. Let's place our first water asset, and we're going to go with this covered park pier. You see this in some larger ponds or lakes and towns, maybe even national parks around you, where you can dock your little boat or launch your kayak off of. I think that this is just the cutest little thing. We're going to put that at the end of that path so you walk directly up to it. And it needs some power. I'm going to sink this down to make it just about even with the path, so the person isn't going too high. And that's not too low to the point where it's going to get destroyed and storm surge. Now, I'm going to think long and hard about what else I'm going to do here. We have limited space, and I think one asset that we could use is not from the actual park life. It is from the Park Life DLC, but not the city parks, but the nature reserve. I'm going to go and extend my park area to encompass a larger waterfront, because this is a waterfront park after all. You know, sometimes that happens. We may lay out some plans, some projects in our comprehensive plans, and we deviate because something works better. And this happens all the time. What we're going to do is we're going to go into our paths. We're going to take our zoo path this time without trees, and we're going to make an elevated segment. The reason why is because the zoo path actually has this vegetation, this foliage hanging off of it, which gives it a wild type of vibe. I love that. That is just the cutest. I'm going to take my path with trees, with decorations, and send that off. I'm going to make a short span of a bridge segment here just for aesthetics. Now I'm going to lower this and have a ground segment, and I'm going to send this along our waterfront, our new waterfront park. Now that our ground segment is active, we're just going to continue. There we go. I think that we're going to stick with the natural sort of look for now, at least until we figure out the aesthetics. Once we figure out the aesthetics of the park, we can revisit redoing this waterfront with either rocks or maybe even something more manicured like a quay. I think this is the perfect place for some fishing piers, so let's put those down. That would give the residents of this community an opportunity to fish. I did want to place a gazebo down because why not have a gazebo on the waterfront? I am sorry, I am just a sucker for beautiful natural environments. Paradox, please give us the ability to make even more beautiful environments in Cities Skylines 2. I am looking forward to it for sure. All right, let's go ahead and let's continue to place down our park assets. I am sticking with these gazebos because gazebos provide great places to sit and just hang out. I'm going to see if we can put a restroom right here, and I think that fits pretty nice. Let's work in another plaza because we have a plaza on one of the ends of a park, but we want to put a plaza here on this end as well. We have the chessboard, so we want to make another place for people to congregate. Making additional connections gives us even more opportunity to maximize our land usage here within our park. Our space is constrained as it is. By making connections and boxing this plaza in, I'm giving myself the opportunity to flatten some terrain or even make it level to other segments, so we have a nice place where people can go and hang out, and have a place where they're even getting a vantage point looking out over the park. Because I'm using Surface Painter, I do have to clean this up a little bit. Paradox, please give us the ability to plot different surfaces or paint different surfaces in CS2, and please make it a little bit more user-friendly so we can control the way it looks a little bit better. I am just playing this game where I'm going back and forth just trying to make it perfect. I think that's as good as it's going to get, and I'm just going to leave it. Let's do some detailing by going into our vegetation and putting some vegetation down on the side of this hill. We do have some earth that's sticking out. We're going to hide that earth as best as we can with this vegetation. This is going to give this place a more natural feel. This place feel like it was carefully thought about, even in cities where they don't respect the topography and they just kind of build over everything. There's still some degree of conformity to the environment. Now, I'm going to place a jumping place for kids. This is so extra. I've actually never been to a municipal park that has a trampoline section or a jumpy park for kids or even teens at that. But we're going to place one down here because why not? It's a little different. It's cheap. It's not going to break the bank. I'm going to put down a park over here, a climbing frame, because we can't have enough of them. It's always better to have multiple climbing frames, especially in such a large park. That way, parents can get the best use out of these playgrounds. I want to put a climbing rock right there on this crossroad, this cross section between that bridge and that path, just to further emphasize that this is a place of recreation. You can come outdoors and you can enjoy. What better thing to do than to put an observation station here on this hill. Now I need to make a path and I need to send it down this hill so people can actually get to this observation station and use it. I want to make it as smooth as the connection as possible, but that's not smooth. That segment definitely doesn't like that, so let's rethink that. You know what? I think I'm just going to go from this node here up 3 meters and I'm going to connect right there. That looks as good as it's going to get for now. Let's go into our slope tool with our network multi-tool and let's slope that. That's a more reasonable grade, but I think we can do a little bit better. As you can see, our observation station is a little bit higher, so we're going to select that very last node and that one down there. We're going to click on our observation station, Control H, and make that even with that node. Use and move it. We're just going to send this back just a little bit so it's now flush with the path. Now people can walk straight off the path onto observation station. After a short time away, we realized that we can utilize this empty space even better. We can utilize a low-cost option to transform this space by creating a food truck plaza, a place where the community can gather and try the best wings, tacos, and donuts a food truck can offer, as well as anything else that they can throw in here. Just look at that. Food trucks are great for so many reasons. They create an exciting and an energetic atmosphere. They're vibrant. They bring in cultures, tastes from all over the world. And it's a great way to encourage entrepreneurs to get out there and expose themselves and market themselves to the community. Let's see if we could put a small fountain plaza down. And it doesn't look like I have any available real estate. So instead of going for the full fountain, we'll use the prop within the fountain. We're going to go to our props and we're just going to look for a good fountain that will fit in this roundabout. I feel like it's a little bare and I feel like we could do a little bit better. I thought that I was going to go with one of these, but on second thought, I think the cube looks best. So I'm just going to make sure that's centered to the best of my abilities. Great. Now that that's placed down, let's go ahead and start some detailing. I want to go with a food truck. I mentioned before that food trucks are great because they enhance the atmosphere and they're bringing cuisines from all over the world, especially when you get people in a diverse area, in a nice metropolitan area. I'm going to place these props down because I used to grow up in a place where we had food trucks in a park, and we went to this park every weekend, and there would always be the best food. We now have the ability to place some park additions that we already have down. Thank you, mods. I'm going to place one more stand or food truck right here. There we go. And let's go with this cannonball prop. I really like this. This fits in with the whole Chattamaugua theme. Because there was a Civil War battle here, what better way to signify that this is a historic place than a cannon from the 1860s? Cool beans. Let's put down our flower beds. What better way to show that this is this city's flagship park, that this is the municipal park that you want to go to on a Sunday. Now, I don't want to use a straight line tool for food trucks. Instead, I want to use these flower beds. I wish there was a little bit more variety or more colors to these props. Paradox, I know you're not going to disappoint on the second version of this game, especially when it comes to the flower beds. You did okay here, and I know you're going to do even better in Cities Skylines 2. So I'm going to send this all the way back to this segment. And we're going to continue this throughout the entire park. Flowers can really transform a landscape for so many reasons. For one, they add color, and even further, they create a welcoming and serene atmosphere for visitors. They can actually help the landscape's aesthetic appeal, and they can provide several benefits to parks, as well as improving the air quality, further driving home the health benefits of having a park near you. And they can also release oxygen into the atmosphere, which flowers attract pollinators like bees. Okay, let's go ahead and place additional seating in this nook right here. I think that we can get away with that, considering that it is a dead space that wasn't being used before. Why not have some additional seating where people can sit underneath the tree? One thing we don't have is trash cans, so let's place some trash cans down. I placed one just by the gazebo, and I'm going to place one by the cafe. I'm going to place another here at the end of this segment so people can throw their cans and their trash away, and one more or two here at the amphitheater. I'm going to try to fit this in as best as I can. And there we go. I actually had to cut this because it did take me a while to be able to place that down. I didn't have prop anarchy on, so I did it the legal way. I'm using another one of the pedestrian promenades assets. This is arguably one of the best plazas that came with the DLCs, so I'm putting that down here by the restrooms, and I see the perfect little opportunity to make a seating area here at the restrooms. So we're going to do that in just a second. But first, let me place a facility down for individuals' entertainment. Because we're by the high school, I think it'd be great to have an additional basketball court not too far off. And looking at this additional hill area that we created, we can break this up. We can break up the openness with some of these planters. I think that these assets might actually have benches on them. If they don't, fine. If they do, great. These can be put any sort of way as long as you have anarchy on. Now that anarchy's on, I'm just going to make as interesting of a pattern as I can by trying to connect these. This would give the feeling that this specific part of the park was engineered and it was made to give you great visual sight lines. While you're at the bottom of the hill, these would be above your line of sight. So you would see planters, trees, and flowers going up the hill. This gives you the feeling that there's even more green space than there actually is. If you were in this park today, you would feel like you have extra security and you feel extra closed in because of these planters. Now, I just want to get down a little lower to see if these are exactly level. and I don't want them sticking out the ground because there is no concrete segment that comes up beneath it when it's on an incline. So I'm just using Move It to make sure they're good. Look at that. It does look like there is more green space than there actually is, especially when you're coming from the lower part of the hill. Now, I am liking the way this is turning out. We are using our green space pretty effectively, and we're making the best out of this parcel of land that wasn't really usable in the first place, especially the road configuration that we had. I'm looking for more seating assets because why not? These are parks. They do provide entertainment value. They provide additional seating, and the more areas you have like this in the park, the better. The only thing is you really don't want to have them too close together or have too many of them, or else you can have the opposite effect of what they were intended for. You can actually make the park feel enclosed and cramped if you have too many of these and they're not placed in a strategic manner. So I want two of these to complement each other. The reason why is the additional seating, and this makes it seem like this is a place where you want to be. I'm no park designer, but I know a thing or two about making a safe, cozy environment. At least I would like to think I do. So the goal here is to create an environment that's inviting the people. I just want the energy to flow, and I want people to feel like this is a place that's meant for them. Let's go back into our assets and let's see what else we can place here without making this park feel too cluttered. I think that I'm going to put a gazebo down right here and call it a day there. Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. Matter of fact, that is what I'm going to put there. I'm not going to fight it. I can go back and forth all day with that. Now, let's start laying down our trees. We do have an open area, and open areas are great, but sometimes open areas can be a bad thing, especially during hot days. In the south, it can get hot and it can get humid, so let's put some trees down. I mentioned before that this is going to be a great place for us to build an outdoor seating area for the restrooms. So I'm doing that now. Laying down some of my flowers that came by Mr. Mason in one of the updates, and I'm going to my decals, and I'm going to use decals that came with the pedestrian and promenades DLC. But first, I need to go and get my pergola. I'm going to plop that down as centered as I can get it. And then I'm going to take a variety of different benches that came with the pedestrian and promenades DLC, and I'm going to paste those down in no particular order. I think I'm just going to go with 2 by 2, 2 on each side. And I'm going to go with a decal, a tiled floor in the middle. I love this tile. It's plain, it's simple, less is more. So now when this is completed, we'll have a great place for people to sit while they're waiting for the loved ones to get out the bathroom or while they're waiting in line. Look at that, so gorgeous. So when you come in the park, you have nice sight lines straight to the hotel. I'm going to take this ball fountain asset that I got off the workshop, and I'm going to figure out a place where I can put it. I don't really need to put this down, but I want to. I was thinking I can have it in front of this fountain, and then I was thinking to myself, now, why would you have a fountain in front of a fountain? The redundancy is sickening. So I place this here by the entrance where it adds at least some sort of visual value. When you come in, you see a spinning fountain, and that gives you a nice sense of pride, knowing that you live in a city with such a cool park. I'm going to take this tall grass and I'm going to place this in this low-lying area just behind this bank, just to signify that this is a wild area. And I want to blend the park in with the natural environment as best as I can. I was thinking maybe I can hide the bank with these evergreen trees, but I realized that's probably not the best idea because they don't look the best in this application. So let me place some cottonwoods down, eastern cottonwoods, see if that makes a difference. And they may. I'm going to go with these generic date palms, and I am just going to plant these all over these pathways in this park. I'm going to make my first plant here, and I'm going to figure out where else that I'm going to put these. I have a great vision in my mind, and I know what I want it to look like. Now I just need to execute it. So sit back and relax while we do this. Y'all, I identified one point that I need some touch up, and that's right here on this side of the amphitheater. Because there isn't a concrete segment that comes out underneath an incline or on an incline, I'm just going to use one of my boulders, and I'm going to make this seem as if that these boulders are resting underneath the amphitheater, as if it was built on top of them. I'm going to take one more or two rocks, maybe even three. Two is fine. And I'm going to take my vegetation and fill this in to make this seem like a more natural environment. And what better way to do that than some tall grass? So I'm going to place some on that side. I don't have tree anarchy on, so I'm going to do the best that I can. I think we can use some bushes right here in this side entrance. And I'm going to fill this in as best as I can, and I'm going to make it as close as possible to mirror the other side. Not really close, not really mirrored. I kind of gave up on that, but it still looks good. Let's take some vegetation and let's cover this area up. I kind of went a little crazy with the palms, and you know I love my vegetation, so I'm just going to place some down on this exposed earth right here next to this plaza. We could really use some fencing around this park, so I am going to do that now. I'm going to grab my park fence. I'm going to switch to the freeform tool with all of the snap tools off. This will allow me to make these cool connections right up against this road. I'm going to make sure that I follow this road all the way around the perimeter from point to point, and I'm going to make a connection into the side gates themselves. Now, with the freeform tool still selected, I'm going to send this on the side of these props. Now, I had to enable anarchy by pressing Control A when you have the network anarchy mod enabled. Now that that's done, I can send the segment actually inside of the bank to make it have the appearance that the fence is terminating at the corner of the building. That just looks clean. My amphitheater has been crying all episode that there is no pedestrian connection. We're going to fix that now using a trick that we've learned years ago when these DLCs first dropped. We're going to erase part of this segment and we're going to make a new segment. I then realized that was the wrong thing to do. We are going to take one of our other pedestrian segments. We are going to send it out, and then we're going to erase the excess zoning around it so we can have a satellite pedestrian district. Now that that's fixed, we just have to do a little bit of cleanup. And you do that by extending your old district that you ripped through, and you erase some of the extra square footage, some of the extra feet that you got from the pedestrian district. Shrink it down to the size that you need it to be so you're not being charged. Now's a good time to use my forest brush to place some trees down in this unused section of this parcel where we'll have some development. I think it will be great to have some sort of wood area in between the park and the development that we will be doing in that little peninsula. My fellow urbanites, I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like and give me a subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Stand by for a brief city tour.